Well, we are on. We are back. It's been a little while since we've done a new show.
Yeah.
And this one, ladies and gentlemen, we have a blockbuster for you. We have with us tonight one of our favorite guests, Reverend Kevin Annett, who has just come back from Brantford, from the residential school, Canada's longest running, and it was the first, was it not?
1832.
1832 until 1970, and you can see the building behind us. It looks almost like a hotel, but it's far more sinister than it appears. And I think you and I are pretty pleased to be able to share with you the information that we have tonight, because this is the first time anyone will have seen what we're going to show you tonight on any kind of television or broadcast anywhere in the world. And I hope that those of you who do see it will take the initiative and share it with everyone you know, because this is evidence of a crime committed by churches and committed by our government that is absolutely one of the most abhorrent things to happen in the history of this nation. And I think without further ado, Kevin, tell us what's been going on at Brantford. I know we reported last time you were on a dig.
Yeah. Since October 1st, I've been working with the Mohawk people there, the Ongwahanwe people, and they asked me to come last April to identify and bring back for proper burial their children who were buried on the grounds over about 150-acre area. And I've been doing that, first with ground penetrating radar, and then actual excavations, which started this week.
Mm-hmm.
And this is some of what we turned up with. These are bones that were obtained from a mass grave site about 50 yards from the school. They've been positively identified as human, starting with this one here, and I don't know if you can pick this up.
You can see it on the monitor there.
You can see it there? Yeah.
Kevin,
Okay.
there.
This is identified by an archaeologist as the knee socket of a child. Now, you can measure, there's a standard length of the femur in the human body, it's 2/7 your height. And so by measuring that, we find that this was a child maybe yay big. So we're talking a very young child, maybe 3-4 years old.
Not even at that
Yeah,
height.
maybe
Not
even younger.
Maybe even younger.
These bones were found at a depth of about 2 feet, which means they were probably dumped there, because they were also found in association with lots of little white buttons, which we've identified from survivors as coming from uniforms that were worn in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Also, these bones that were found, if you look at this one here, it's been cut in half. You see, it's just cut long ways. And there's another one here,
Yeah.
probably
This
from
is
a rib.
Yeah, that's a rib bone for
It's
sure.
been cut sideways. So they've been cut in both directions. And they were also found in association with a lot of charcoal. And survivors have described how they believe that children's bodies, after they died, were incinerated in the school furnace. So all of that is fairly direct evidence that children were put here.
And they were chopped up.
and they
I mean,
were-
look
they
at
were
the
chopped
flat
up.
on that. There's no way that happened naturally. That was done by a saw. Obviously, a saw.
right.
An axe couldn't do it. So,
So, we've over the years shown statistics about half the children die, and we've heard stories. And up till now, there was almost part of me that felt maybe this all isn't true. Maybe people made up stories. Maybe these documents, they're pieces of paper, right? But when you're looking at the hard evidence, not only of human bones, but in association with charcoal, being cut up and being so young, and obviously being buried in secret, that it brings it down and makes it real for the first time. And this is the kind of evidence that we're working on now to bring out, not only in Brantford, but 3 areas of the country. People have contacted me from the Indian nations there and actually asked me to come and help them do the same thing there on the West Coast, in Ojibwe territory, and out in New Brunswick. So this is the start of an enormous wave, and it's really going to change the face of Canada.
well, yeah, and it'll start by obviously changing the face by digging stuff up.
Yeah.
I mean, 50,000 children disappeared over the course of a century and a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 50% of the children who went to these residential schools did not survive them.
Yes.
And because they did not survive them, but 50,000 children did not come home in a box, that means their remains are somewhere that they should not be.
Well, and you know what's really explosive about this issue is this first residential school in Brantford was set up by the Church of England, the Crown of England, in 1832. And the Mohawks there have never recognized Canada. They've never signed treaties with them. They're called part of the Six Nations, but that was a term that the British invented. All the treaties, if you look at them, never included the Mohawks, just 5 nations: Onondaga, Oneida, Seneca, Tuscarora. The other nations, Mohawk were never included. So they're separate. And it's no accident that those people were the first ever to take this step, because they said from the very beginning, this is our jurisdiction. We're not, you know, the other interesting thing about this, what's happening in Brantford, is it's operating under Mohawk jurisdiction. They said in a statement today, which is actually up on YouTube now, if you go to YouTube and look up under children's bones identified at Canada's oldest Indian residential school, that was just posted today. There's a statement there from 5 of the elders at, from that area. And they said that this is under our jurisdiction. We will not allow the RCMP and the government in here to declare it a crime site. This is our crime site, because they were the ones who put these kids here. How can they investigate it?
They can't.
So it's a direct challenge to the power of the Crown and its courts and the government of Canada by digging up these kids and bringing them back. I mean, there's a lot of support within the community for this. Even people in the band council there have come forward and supported this, because they know it's long overdue.
And of course, with the major complaints coming from across the country about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which is a joke and a half on its face, essentially what you've got is you've got the evidence of massive crime coming forward at a time when the government is basically saying to people, that's okay.
Yeah.
Pat, now go away.
It's so ridiculous. There was a thing in the paper the other day, and I don't know if they follow this, people know what this Truth and Reconciliation Commission is. $68 million to go around and allow some people the right to speak for a few minutes at a mic, as long as they don't name names, as long as they indemnify the churches and don't sue them, as long as they never do anything with the information. So they can tell their story.
So that's sort of like saying, let's say the Royal Bank down the street was robbed today. That means they're allowed to say they were robbed and they were traumatized, but they're not allowed to identify the robbers.
Well, even more directly, it's kind of like your car is robbed. Somebody comes to the door and say, "Hi, I robbed your car. I'm sorry," and now they get off and drive away in the car again. That's how Native people often describe, healing and reconciliation in Canada. Nothing ever changes for them. No. And this TRC, $68 million to have these big, I've been to some of them, they're disgusting. They're big pig fests, for wealthy white and Native people, the bought off government Indian chiefs. And very little is ever disclosed. The other day, the head of it said, well, we're running out of money now. They're going to have to account how they blew through $68 million when they don't even pay for the cost of survivors to come in and tell their story. I remember last June in Winnipeg, I met 6 people who paid their own way down from Sandy Lake in northern Manitoba to tell their story, and they were not helped at all, and they weren't even allowed to speak because they were talking about kids who had died in the residential school. So, it's an enormous whitewash, and the reality is this kind of thing they could have been doing for decades in Canada. Yeah. They could have had a crime investigation. It's a total cover-up, and we're the first people who've ever done this, and it's going to spread from the grassroots, because that's the only way it changes.
Well, it has to, because government and authorities of all types, institutions of all types, are proving across the board that if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself.
Absolutely.
And as far as I'm concerned, I think it's pretty much high time that people started getting out their shovels and digging, and very carefully, and preserving this evidence, because you can't get rid of 50,000 bodies that easy. No. Those bones these are a fraction. These are just the tiniest fraction. Yeah. This is not even one child.
No, it's different individuals. This is of a small child. This one is more of an adolescent or even a young adult. So, they're all mixed together. Yeah. But I really want to caution people, too. It's important not to destroy the excavation site, but to bring in professionals. What we did was just a test dig. We're actually bringing in an archaeological team from outside of Canada in the new year to conduct a complete dig. And we have international groups monitoring this,
Yeah.
so Canada can't shut it down.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You're bringing in an archaeological team. It's almost like, I'm not sure whether you should be bringing in archaeologists or criminal forensic
Both.
experts.
Part of that team is a forensic expert, and also people who can do things like identify sinkholes and vegetation, which indicates, graves. So yeah, it's a complete team. It isn't just one archaeologist.
Yeah. And of course, the farther away you get from any building, the more likelihood you're going to have of finding bones that are intact as opposed to chopped up.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because there's two areas we're looking outside the school and also inside the school. Eyewitnesses who've gone there describe subterranean chambers where children were kept after they died, and various other things done to them, which, depending on who you believe. But
well, last time you were here, you mentioned that they'd found a rack.
that's not here. That was at the Kamloops School in British Columbia.
Oh, Lord.
And William Coombs, who's dead now, he testified how they used to put him on there all the time. It was a Catholic school in Kamloops. This is Church of England, Anglican. And I'm going down to the Occupy Toronto site right after this. They actually asked me to come and speak. So I'm just going to stand up and say it's interesting that the Anglican Church kind of asked you to get off their space, because the reason the Anglican Church is being evicted from this territory by the local people is because of this. Why did they chop up bodies of children and plant them bury them on the grounds of the school? And that's something, that they have to answer before a court of law, not just in front of the media, but
Well,
in
I
the
would
trial.
think that all of these so-called men of God have to also answer to their God, because you don't chop up bodies of children, even if they are died of natural causes and through no fault of anyone. It is the tradition of every culture to honor the dead. Every culture honors their dead. This is not honoring the dead to chop up a bone. This is not honoring the dead. This is the hiding of a crime.
Yeah, it's a horrible thing to look at, and I mean, I know there's a lot of psychological resistance to even admitting that happened, and that's it's harder to when we have a forensic specialist in BC who is examining the DNA of these bones, so we'll be able to match who it is, find out exactly who these people are. But once those reports come out, it's undeniable now at that point.
Yeah.
All three things are in place: the eyewitnesses, the documentation, and now the forensic proof. I mean, I was saying to you earlier, I've been waiting 18 years for this moment. We've been trying for that long all over the country, and finally some people have the courage to say, yes, let's start the process.
Now, this is a story that is really not getting a lot of mainstream media attention.
Of course not.
Kevin. I mean, it sounds like a huge story.
It is.
But is it going to? It's almost like official history, official events
Right.
aren't official.
No.
Don't become history until
No.
they get into the mass media.
Well, that's a good point, Hugh. And the reality is that this will not get in because, and I've had the experience of that. Reporters telling me that there's a lot of good reporters out there, but they go through the same process, being told that there's certain issues and people that don't make it into the broadcast. And this is one of them, because they're, as one of the editor of the Vancouver Sun told me 15 years ago, they don't want to face a multi-million-dollar lawsuit from the churches. And I said, well, how could they sue you if what you're reporting is true? I mean, that's the basic defense in the libel suit, that no, it's true, it's not libelous. It's not that so much as the fact that under the law, churches are protected. We have the best example of that in the way the Pope himself can order the suppression of evidence about child abuse in the church, write a document about it, sign letters to bishops about it, and never be prosecuted. So I think it's the same situation here in Canada, very much.
Well, he has the power and has used that power to cover up the evidence of pedophilia throughout the world.
Yeah.
And in fact, his Christmas address, did you hear this? That his Christmas address, this is Pope Benjamin Ratzinger.
Joe the Rat, they call him.
Joe the
in
Rat,
Rome,
yeah, well, good enough. But as far as I'm concerned, when the Pope, considered to be the head of religion in the world, stands up in front of his cardinals and his Vatican staff at his traditional Christmas address and says that pedophilia is becoming normal? What?
Wait, he said that?
He said that to his Vatican officials in his official
Right,
address
he was
and to the cardinals.
He was blaming the secularization and the loss of values in that. It's a funny thing to say because, in fact, there's a lot more incidents of children being molested in religious environments, not atheist environments. Because,
Exactly.
You're protected under the law for one thing. As a priest, you have immunity, special immunity from prosecution. About 95% of rapes that go on within churches are never reported.
Yeah.
And in fact, they can't be reported under the Catholic doctrine right now because you're excommunicated if you disclose that information.
Wow.
So, I mean, until that changes, this will go on. And this is related to it. I mean, this happened because the churches knew they were above the law
Yeah.
in operating
Yeah.
these schools, and they could do anything they
Yeah.
wanted, and they did.
And of course, we see that continuing today in government treatment of reserves, isolated reserves, where resources are being ripped off.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get back to that in a moment. We've got to take a brief break for the benefit of our sponsors, and we'll be right back with more on this travesty and this crime.
Between depleted diets and day-to-day stress, today's high-tech, high-speed lifestyle wears us down. So we need to make sure our bodies have the right fuel to keep going and stay healthy. And that means we need the right balance of calcium and magnesium to keep our bones strong, guard against osteoporosis, and to keep our muscles working smoothly. Life Choice Optical Mag Complex gives you a veritable feast of nutrients in one capsule. Vitamins B6 and D, plus potassium, boron, and MSM, on top of 2 forms of calcium and 3 of magnesium. This all-natural formula gives your bones a boost and helps your muscles carry you through the day. Check out Optical Mag Complex and all the terrific new Life Choice formulations to help you achieve your optimum health. It's your life, and it's your choice. So make it Life Choice.
Did you know that your thyroid gland is the master and commander of many body functions and is a pivotal factor in the maintenance of your overall health? Whether it's overactive or running on idle, an off-kilter thyroid can cause a long list of ailments, including fatigue, fuzzy thinking, depression, and anxiety. It can slow your reflexes and speed up your heart, raise your blood pressure, and cause you to gain or lose weight. With all that at stake, it makes good sense to take good care of your thyroid with Thyroid Support, a fast-acting, easy-to-take homeopathic formula from Life Choice. Life Choice Thyroid Support. It's nature's goodness wrapped with care. We all know that vitamin B6 is really important to us, right, Hugh? And the best form of vitamin B6 to take is pyroxidol 5-phosphate, or P5P, because it's in the form that goes right to work.
That's right, Dee. Now, Life Choice brings you P5P complex plus a blend of trace minerals to help you fight carpal tunnel syndrome, neuritis, fatigue, depression, decreased immune function, and more.
And P5P is the only form of B6 that can be given safely to infants, so you know it's the perfect solution for you and your family. It's sort of like honey. The bees digest it for us, so it's the safest sweetener there is. You could say it's a honey of a bee.
It sure is. And with Life Choice, you always know it's nature's best wrapped with care.
Absolutely. Health-conscious Canadians know that nowadays staying healthy means supplementing your diet. And we all know that, right?
Absolutely.
The best way to do that is with natural products from Life Choice, where we shop the world to bring you the finest ingredients, specially blended to give you the best results in building and maintaining your optimum health. Life Choice products are precision formulated by a naturopathic doctor and a team of specialists who take pride in bringing you the quality, value, and health you deserve. All Life Choice products are Health Canada approved, so you can buy them with confidence. Yes, there really is a difference with Life Choice. You can prove it to yourself. Ask for Life Choice products at your local health food store. Life Choice, with 25 years of experience, wrapping nature's goodness with care. And we're back, and boy, I tell you, it's kind of disconcerting, I have to say. I'm sitting here next to the remains of people who were murdered, and there's no question in my mind that these people were murdered, and their bones are sitting here. They should not be here. They should be buried in a proper grave. They should have been returned to their families. They should have been honored in death. as they were not in life. And this to me is, it's upsetting. It really is
Well, you
upsetting.
know, down in Brantford this last week, he's an Aboriginal candidate for the NDP leadership. His name's Rawennatshani, and he was speaking. I spoke to him briefly, and he said he had a brother and sister who were at the mush hole. The Brantford
That's
school,
what they call it, the mush
the
hole?
Brantford school is called the mush hole by survivors because that's what they had to eat all the time if they were lucky. And he had some sisters and brothers there, but he also had a brother who died in a Saskatchewan residential school. And he was describing how, and he's going to make this an issue when he runs in the NDP. He said they mourned for years because they were never told how he died or where he was buried. Just vanished. Finally, they found his grave, and he said when they did that and they knew where he was buried, this enormous kind of grief began to depart a bit because at least they knew where he was. Well, this is all we're asking. This the first thing that's needed to be done is to have a proper
A
reinterment.
resolution for the
And
families.
I don't think there's a resolution possible on this stuff because but
No, these
But
are
it's-
crimes for which people will never hang. The vast majority of these crimes have been committed by
Yeah.
people who are long dead.
no, actually, the last school didn't close till 1996. These perpetrators are still alive, which is why there's such a whitewash.
Do we
on
have
the whole
evidence
thing.
of
I have
these
names.
crimes going on, like current
Well, there is
or up to 1996?
within the Aboriginal world, child trafficking still goes on. In the foster care system, there's more children being deculturalized, put in white foster homes, and losing any semblance of their culture. There's more of those kids now than there ever were in residential schools.
Yeah.
So I mean, these things continue. They don't just stop with just because the schools close.
Yeah, and this week we've been looking at the news and hearing how the First Nation up at Ottawa-Piscat, which is near Timmins, north of Timmins, on James Bay. It's a fly-in community, and the De Beers Mining Company is in there, and they have a mine now that the First Nations were convinced by the De Beers people that they would be getting money and they would be getting assistance and they would
The
be
old
getting
story.
jobs. And of course, they were offered jobs like sweeping the floor and waiting on tables. They were never offered any real jobs. And there has been money put into the community. But of course, nobody knows where that community money went because there's corruption throughout. And so we might not have things going on that are as, shall we say, in your face
Well, all
as
the missing
50,000 children.
there's missing bones of missing Aboriginal women all over this country. They
Oh,
keep
yeah.
disappearing all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So,
But this is right in our face
Yep,
right now.
yep.
And now, of course, with the Picton pig farm thing, I mean, all of this is all tied in. And there's more dirt coming out on that, too, about how the RCMP knew 3 years in advance they knew
yep.
what was going on, and they failed to get a warrant or do anything.
Yep.
But
Hey, we got some video
we do.
of Kevin. Is this?
This is on the third day of the excavation. About what you're going to be looking at is at about 50 yards from the residential school in Brantford, and it's in the forest, what's now forest, near a large sinkhole. And within half an hour of digging, we began to uncover these bones, and this is part of what we did.
Wow. So let's take a look, and we'll come right back.
Okay, third day of the second round of digs, and we found today, it's definitely a piece of, we believe, human bone. There's the hip socket or a joint socket right there, and a fairly small body, a person probably under 3 feet, or 3 feet or smaller. And it was significantly, it was near the base of this tree. It was about a foot, just over a foot from the base of this tree, and we've often been told that kids were buried under trees because trees were planted where they were buried. And this seems to bear that out. That would have been at around 18 inches below the soil.
This is the bone.
Yep.
This is the child's knee socket.
Now, with DNA testing, I think I mentioned, you can DNA match. You do a swab from your mouth, and you can DNA match and find out who that child is and who their relatives are. So that's the one of the good things that's coming out of this is that we will be able to finally tell those relatives this is what happened to your child, or your relative.
Now, can these bones also be dated so that
Yes.
we can?
The analysis will determine the age, sex, probably cause of death, and the approximate time. Also, in association with the tree rings and other material in the ground, you can carbon date some of the stuff there. So it's all doable.
Yeah, once the archaeological process starts, the information starts to flow from there. So it's a really good thing that this has been done. I mean, you know me, I'm never speechless. I'm almost speechless at looking at this because it's just so, it's shocking enough to hear the stories. It truly is shocking enough to hear the stories. But when you actually see the evidence, and you know what? United Church of Canada, Catholic Church, Anglican Church, Government of Canada, explain me this. Explain me this. And come up with a good one, because their TRC ain't doing diddly squat to do that.
It's meant not to do.
Exactly. It's meant to cover this over. Well, you know what? The truth always comes out, doesn't it?
It does.
And the truth is coming out now.
I was saying I've lived 18 years for this moment because, since 1993, when I began to learn about this in Port Alberni as a minister there, I couldn't have imagined it would have gone this far, that we would have been able to be this successful in bringing out the truth. But the reason we have is, like the bones, this information is all accessible. It's everywhere. It's in the lives of survivors. It's in the documents. It's everywhere. It's like the huge elephant in our living room. It's sitting there looking at us. But we've got to open our eyes and finally look at it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really indicates to us very strongly how very much suppressed our knowledge, our interaction, our communication with First Nations is. Because if this were to happen, well, mind you, it does. It does happen to white children too.
Yep.
It's not just Native children.
Yep.
It's children who are accessible to these pedophiles, abusers, murderers, Satanists. Because a lot of these children were subject to satanic ritual, were they not?
Well, that's been reported from survivors that they were definitely used in various rituals at times. I've heard sometimes those stories over the years. I interviewed over 1,000 people for this book I wrote, and you occasionally hear those stories. But the problem with trying to get this into the public record is, I remember the first time we tried to take this to trial in 1996. I was with the first survivors who ever tried suing. It was at the time the United Church, and we were told by the lawyers, well, there's certain issues you can't raise in court. I can't raise in court as a lawyer. And I said, oh, why is that? What are the issues? They said, well, having to do with anything that might criminally implicate the Crown. And I said, like killing children? And he wouldn't answer that. But he said, he's an officer of the court, so certain issues can't be raised. In other words,
right.
Oath of loyalty to the Crown by the members of Parliament, by the judges, by the lawyers, means this cannot legally be allowed to be addressed in Canada. So we have to do it ourselves. That's why
Well,
we're
by
bringing in-
officialdom.
by the official route. We're bringing in international experts. We're going to go to The Hague and places where the international courts of justice can look at this.
Well, hey, Kuala Lumpur got brave last week and declared that George Bush and Dick Cheney are war criminals. Well, if Kuala Lumpur can get brave, so can we. There is no reason why we can't. They put together a tribunal of independent judges, experts.
Yep.
Well, this is what we have going here with the ITCCS.
Well, how
is
can
it
we? So if any official of the court, as you just said, right? If anything that implicates the Crown in criminal activity cannot be done by an official of the court, which is any lawyer, is that not right? Or any?
Yeah,
And
they
any
all
judge.
swear to the Crown. They
A
all
judge-
swear an oath
judge
to
as
the
well.
Crown.
What
Yeah.
about a paralegal or somebody operating?
The judge still has to hear the court, and there's several cases, one in New Brunswick, one in Alberta, about 10 years ago now, where the judges said the same thing. This is ultra vires, which means it's beyond my jurisdiction. I cannot rule on whether the Crown, who appoints me, is guilty of these crimes. So it's simply tossed out of court and never considered by
There's
the judge.
no other, where can that kind of thing get a hearing?
In Canada, in the public domain,
Yeah, public
or
tribunals.
if there was intervention by international, like if there was under the International Criminal Code now, other countries like Spain, for example, could come in, charge Stephen Harper with complicity in genocide by trying to cover this things up say through the TRC, where people are not allowed to name names or whatever, he could be indicted. If he went outside the country, he could be arrested and tried in another court for these things. But again, it's a question of jurisdiction. And the other route to go, of course, is the Mohawks, for example, have talked about reestablishing through their longhouse the three traditional bear, wolf, turtle clan system that was their court. And they've already discussed possibly reestablishing that court in order to put this issue on trial. So they would issue their own summonses to arrest people, bring them in for questioning.
It almost seems because they are the First Nations
Yeah.
that we're here, that they have a jurisdiction or a right
Yeah.
to create a judicial forum like this that preempts the Crown.
It does.
Well,
Absolutely.
it never,
You're right, Kate. That's
it never
exactly
got
the issue.
treated away either.
It didn't. The Mohawks
So-
have never signed a treaty, and they have a kind of a, what's the word? And I forget from my 1 year of law school, but it's a pre-existing right before any treaty was signed, before the Crown imposed themselves on something that was originally called the Tura Wampum Treaty, which was the Treaty of Equality signed between the Haudenosaunee and the Dutch and then the English, which wouldn't have allowed the Indian Act or residential schools. So we abrogated that, and we have to get back to that more, kind of what it was originally intended, I think, by the people here.
Now, what's that going to take? Because it seems to me that for a First Nations judicial forum to really achieve that and be successful at that, it has to kind of almost win in the court of public opinion. It has to be accepted by the public. And I'm just curious what you think about, because there's politics among the Native people too.
Absolutely, there is. And it's a really good question because, first of all, 2 years ago, Decima did a public opinion poll. 58% of Canadians want to sever ties with the Crown. So we already have the majority of Canadians on our side say, we need a republic. So if we had a referendum on that, a lot of the problem would be solved. We would have courts of the Republic of Canada, or whatever you want to call us, and they would then have the jurisdiction to put the Crown on trial in these churches that are Crown-established organizations. Short of that, you're not going to get a political solution. But getting the Native nations to operate together, I think in order to take that first step, you'd have to do, by way of an analogy, when the Jews of the Warsaw Ghetto did their uprising in April 1943, they did something before taking up arms against the Germans. And what they did is they shot every member of the Jewish Elders Council, their own people who were collaborating with the Nazis, who were rounding up people, their own people, to send off in cattle cars, who were determining, who they were collaborating with the Nazis. They knew that they had to get rid of the collaborating authorities, otherwise they were divided and they wouldn't be able to do anything. And now, by way of an analogy, I don't mean you should go out and shoot the head of the Assembly of First Nations, but metaphorically, you need to. There's a plan afoot to turn the Assembly of First Nations into a political party and giving them representation in the Senate and the House of Commons. Then Canada can say to the world, we've solved our history of genocide, but they won't use that word, but our history of colonialism in Canada. Now Natives have representation in Parliament, just like they do in New Zealand. They have to take an oath of loyalty to the Crown, but they're going to leave that little part out. That's the route they would like to go, but at a basic level, Native people need to be united, just like non-Native people need to do, outside the jurisdiction of the Crown, and that's exactly what they're doing in Mohawk territory, and that's why this is an issue not just about missing children, but about their survival as a nation, and really our survival too.
I was talking to a lady who's a Native journalist the other day about Bill C-27 that is now in front of the House, and this is a bill that purports to address the criminality that's going on with government grants and government funding coming into some of these reserves, and what's happening is it's not getting past the chief and the tribal council. And nobody knows where the money's going. Well, this is likely the case in Ottawa-Piscat as well, because they have $2 million a year supposedly coming in from De Beers, but where's it going? These people, they don't have housing. They have, roofs with tarps over them.
And it's the money too. Not just the corruption, but the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but people who are getting paid by the government, by the Crown, to whatever, to manage Indian affairs, whether they're, if they're Native, they've got they've got an interest in whatever the government
Absolutely.
wants.
And we had an example of that. Bill Montour, who's head of the Six Nations Tribal Council in Oswego, which is kind of the local collaborating, Native organization. He tried to set up a business and bring in wind power generators to try to create a local economy. He was not allowed to do so. The Ottawa went behind his back to Samsung, the company, and said, don't deal with them, deal with us. And every time a Native person tries to do that, you can't even open a bank account as a chief or councillor on an Indian reservation without permission in writing from Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
So it's because under the Indian Act, Natives are legal wards of the state. They're like a child under the law.
So
And
isn't that interesting?
that's not allowed under international law, by the way, but Canada gets to do it for some reason.
Yeah, well, see, now I'm finding it interesting with you having just said that everything has to be reported and accounted for. Then what is the real purpose of C-27? Because it seems that the law already exists to cover all of that stuff.
Well, going back to these, when you've got this, when your whole country is based on this, you have to make sure that everybody is quiet about it. Church officials sign confidentiality agreements. Chief and councillors are told they'll lose their funding if they ever talk about missing children, and a lot of them have told me those stories. I mean, that's the reality. So you can't expect, as long as you're not willing to talk about your history, how you change anything in the present?
It's difficult. I mean, any group of people that is facing problems, and whether it's the Native people or whether it's the rest of us in Canada, trying to deal with government out of control, it's difficult because the media practices a divide and conquer strategy, and everyone's so busy.
Right.
It's hard to get a group of people together to make a change like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And keep them together.
And the same goes for the Native community.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas about how that could happen?
Well, I think that the most basic issue facing us is our children and the state of the earth. And, they're one and the same, really, because it's about our survival, our future. So if people can't unite around something as simple as we've got to protect our children and bring back the children who have died at our hands and stop covering up this genocide, to protect the money of these institutions, I mean, that's something that we need to rally around. And I think I found, when we began to talk about the missing children about 5-6 years ago in our public protests and meetings and that, I found the interest increase. And it's not accidental that soon after that, the government felt they had to apologize for these things because we were hitting a chord. Child trafficking, child abuse is something really difficult to look at because it happens so widely, and it's kind of like another elephant in our room.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, sorry you lost your child is not going to account for this.
No, of course not.
This is like a child sliced up like he was in a butcher.
Let's pretend that's Stephen Harper's child right there.
Yeah, how would he?
Let's pretend that was a child of a prominent white person in Canada. What would happen if even one went missing?
Oh, well, hey.
What would they want? I remember once at I can't forget which church it was. They kind of blur in my mind to the same thing, but at some church in Vancouver, the minister came storming out and said, "We've given an apology, we've given the money, what more do they want?" And I said, "Well, do you have children?" And he said, "Yes." Let's say your child was taken out and killed and buried in a ditch somewhere. What would you want? And he looked totally shocked. He hadn't even thought about it. He hadn't put himself in the picture.
Yeah.
And then I said, "What would you want? Would you want your kid brought home? Would you want to know who's responsible, have a trial? Why have two standards? That's all Native people want." And then he just literally hurried off.
Oh, of course.
Because he couldn't deal with it.
No, he was busted.
Well, yeah.
Busted. And on that note, we'll just take a brief break and we'll come back with more from Brantford Residential School and Kevin Annett in a moment.
Between depleted diets and day-to-day stress, today's high-tech, high-speed lifestyle wears us down, so we need to make sure our bodies have the right fuel to keep going and stay healthy. And that means we need the right balance of calcium and magnesium to keep our bones strong, guard against osteoporosis, and to keep our muscles working smoothly. Life Choice Optical Mag Complex gives you a veritable feast of nutrients in one capsule. Vitamins B6 and D, plus potassium, boron, and MSM, on top of 2 forms of calcium and 3 of magnesium. This all-natural formula gives your bones a boost and helps your muscles carry you through the day. Check out Optical Mag Complex and all the terrific new Life Choice formulations to help you achieve your optimum health. It's your life, and it's your choice. So make it Life Choice.
Did you know that your thyroid gland is the master and commander of many body functions and is a pivotal factor in the maintenance of your overall health? Whether it's overactive or running on idle, an off-kilter thyroid can cause a long list of ailments, including fatigue, fuzzy thinking, depression, and anxiety. It can slow your reflexes and speed up your heart, raise your blood pressure, and cause you to gain or lose weight. With all that at stake, it makes good sense to take good care of your thyroid with Thyroid Support, a fast-acting, easy-to-take homeopathic formula from Life Choice. Life Choice Thyroid Support. It's nature's goodness wrapped with care. We all know that vitamin B6 is really important to us, right, Hugh? And the best form of vitamin B6 to take is pyroxidol 5-phosphate, or P5P, because it's in the form that goes right to work.
That's right, Dee. Now, Life Choice brings you P5P complex plus a blend of trace minerals to help you fight carpal tunnel syndrome, neuritis, fatigue, depression, decreased immune function, and more.
And P5P is the only form of B6 that can be given safely to infants, so you know it's the perfect solution for you and your family. It's sort of like honey. The bees digest it for us, so it's the safest sweetener there is. You could say it's a honey of a bee.
It sure is. And with Life Choice, you always know it's nature's best wrapped with care.
Absolutely. Health-conscious Canadians know that nowadays staying healthy means supplementing your diet. And we all know that, right?
Absolutely.
The best way to do that is with natural products from Life Choice, where we shop the world to bring you the finest ingredients, specially blended to give you the best results in building and maintaining your optimum health. Life Choice products are precision formulated by a naturopathic doctor and a team of specialists who take pride in bringing you the quality, value, and health you deserve. All Life Choice products are Health Canada approved, so you can buy them with confidence. Yes, there really is a difference with Life Choice. You can prove it to yourself. Ask for Life Choice products at your local health food store. Life Choice, with 25 years of experience, wrapping nature's goodness with care. Back with Kevin and Hugh, and I know that you're not, this is an amazing step forward, and as you said, the culmination of 18 years of struggle, but knowing you, I know it's not going to stop there.
No.
I figure now's the time you're calling the armies out. What are you going to be up to in the next little while? That is going
Well, what we're doing, the plan is to take this evidence after more excavation in the spring to the Brussels, the European Parliament. We have a promise by some politicians to look at the forensic evidence. We're going to have reports based on the analysis of the remains and everything. And they will consider bringing in a motion to have an investigation into genocide in Canada, including possible sanctions against Canada for these crimes if they can be absolutely proven in their own courts. Also, we're going to take direct steps, and it's interesting, at the occupation movement, one thing that I'm going to suggest they do is start going and occupying the Anglican Church offices, because they are refusing, and the bishop in London, in the Huron Diocese in London, Ontario, says they are refusing to release documents on the Mushwell, especially about the deaths of children. They have no right to do that, sit on what's evidence of a crime. And so, that we want to encourage direct action by people to, reunite people around this. And also, I guess the final thing is simply to say that this kind of thing is spreading now in the native world. In Saskatchewan, on the west coast in Squamish territory, and among the Maliseet people in New Brunswick. They've all said they're going to start the same process. They want me to come out and help identify the digs and start this thing. So this is only the beginning.
Yeah, I heard the Maliseet are quite serious,
Oh yeah.
as is Capilano.
On the west coast. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, he's
Squamish.
already evicted these churches from his territory.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, yeah. So.
Well, you know what? What's right is right. The bottom line is that, we've all been defrauded. And we've all heard historically, we know our history to a point anyway. What hasn't been, manipulated and covered over with devices. But if we look back in our own history, in Canada and elsewhere, especially in Europe, you find all kinds of abuse by people in authority, in churches, in governments, in crowns. You find the abuse is endemic, and it has been all the way down.
Well, that's the thing. It's global, and it's over centuries, if not millennia. And I find that any country I go, I've been all over Europe and North America, and you find these same crimes, the same cover-up in Ireland, in England, and Italy, everywhere. And so that's the tribunal I'm working with, the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State. It's itccs.org. And I really urge people to follow that information there. If you want to also find the evidence, all my research here is up online at hiddennolonger.com. And you can read all the evidence, the testimonies, the documentation of the huge death rates. It's all up online. And now this stuff will be too, the forensic proof and the children who
and it has to be. It has to be. I mean, I don't know what kind of bricks have to fall on people's heads before they figure out that this is a crime of massive proportions. I don't get it.
So, Kevin, can I ask you, when this all comes out, what does justice look like?
I would say we'd have to apply our own legal and moral standards that we apply to other people. We'd need a war crimes trial in Canada. We'd have to have the heads of the government and churches subpoenaed, brought to stand and take responsibility, like what happened in Nuremberg. Sanctions brought in, changing the laws. So, for example, priests are licensed as public servants. They can be defrocked if they harm a child by the public. They're monitored. There's no reason why Canadians should be allowing churches not to pay taxes when they're responsible for these crimes. All of those changes, reforms need to be brought in if we're going to prevent this happening in the future. But at a more basic level, we have to ask ourselves, what's the ideology, what's the society that caused this to happen? The idea that other people who weren't like us, we had the right to exterminate them. And unless we get at the root of what caused that historically, it'll just keep happening, whether it's here or Afghanistan or Iraq or anywhere around the world. So
let's make a point.
These
are the 99%. These represent the 99%. And consequently, we need to occupy these churches, and we need to say to those who are in charge of them, who the hell do you think you are feeding me such lies? What kind of a man of God or representation of God lies to their people?
People need to take back their churches.
Yes.
Absolutely they do. Yep.
Yes. I mean, as a young girl, when I was a kid, I took a look at the non sequiturs. The church would say this, and then over here it would say that, and this didn't jive with that, and couldn't sit beside this and that.
My mom said, never talk about religion or politics, you'll have a war. So.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's interesting how divisive the whole thing is. But yeah, it's because of that history that we don't like to look at.
Yeah, right? We don't want to look at it. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to admit. I think the biggest thing is we don't want to admit that we got sucked in. That's one of the biggest issues. It's like, I don't want to hear about that because, maybe I might bear some guilt. Well, damn it, we do. We all bear some guilt here. If we're silent about this.
Crime of omission or commission, both.
Whichever. Whichever. Yeah. And as we learned the last time you were here, you were talking about 20 feet of soil was brought in behind this building behind me right now. 20 feet of soil. What do you bring in 20 feet of soil for? New grass?
An interesting image because it's kind of a metaphor for how residential schools are portrayed in our history and society. It's a very bright, nice image. And the reality is, of course, it was the opposite. And this is bearing proof of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all see how government institutions and institutions of all varieties all over the world have a tendency to have a nice facade on them.
Pull back the mask.
Pull back the mask. Pull back the mask on everything.
So what are you doing after this tonight, Kevin? What are you working on next?
Well, this coming week I'm back in Brantford. We're doing more of these forensic investigations. We're going to hear this week from more of the pathologists who are looking at this stuff and doing more research on the grounds of the school, looking for these underground chambers and interviewing the local people who have a lot of the stories that can confirm this. So, staying busy, and I'll be here all back and forth over the next half year before I go to Europe with all this stuff.
I'm just curious, the building, you mentioned that the school itself closed in 1970.
Yeah.
What's the building being used for, or what's it doing today?
It's owned by the tribal council. It's rented out to businesses and used as a storage facility for some of the records. But I tell you, when you go in there, it is eerie and creepy. I don't know how anyone can work in there, let alone, I mean, it should be turned into a museum, if not torn down, once we've done the research on what's still there.
Well, it is. It has that aura.
I'll tell you just in
Hugh was
closing.
saying before it was like The Shining.
Well, the janitor who works there said he hears voices at night. The
Sure he
lights
would.
go on and off in the local houses. They hear banging on windows. And there's on the black bricks of the mush hole here, you'll see children's names from the 1950s and 60s. Help me, writing their name and the day, the year they were brought in there. It's like looking at a prison compound. And it's not a school. These are not residential schools. Very little education happened in them. They were internment camps where half the children died. And we got to start using that language to tell the
it
truth.
might be real interesting to do a psychic examination of the place too.
We have a psychic on the grounds, and that's one of the ways we found this site.
Wow. Boy, I hope you got a camera. I know you do a little bit, but just showing some of that.
Yeah, we're filming everything. We're having it thoroughly monitored. We're actually going to do a documentary film on the whole thing, because this was the first residential school, and it's where the first dig is happening. So it has great symbolism for everybody, all of us, I think.
Yeah, this is amazing, and I'm looking. I'm sitting a foot away from the remains of children who, and then I can feel it. They were murdered. These are murdered children, okay? And I'm looking around. Yeah, this is the Real Health show. Might seem a little odd to some people that we're covering information such as this, but when you look at the assault that humanity has been under from these same authorities over the years, over the centuries, we cannot be healthy as a society. Health takes in more than just bodies. It takes in minds as well. And we cannot be healthy as a society if we allow things like this to go on uninterrupted, uninvestigated, and unresolved. We can't have that and call ourselves civilized. This is not civilization.
Or it is.
Well, in which case, welcome to opposite day,
Yeah,
because
no.
this is not civilized by any stretch of the imagination. And bearing in mind that the people who did this were wearing frocks. They were wearing collars.
I guess that's why I was defrocked.
Well, thank God for small mercies. But I mean, I hope that we're able to continue following this, and I hope that we can do it justice.
We will.
In our small way here at Real Health. I hope that we've been a help. But
It's been a great help, both of you. It's been appreciated over the years how you have been so open on this show to broadcast this. Yeah.
we're open people, and we think everybody should be open.
Thank you.
We think that's the only way to be. And I know it kind of is a little bit anachronistic in the sense that these are, for the most part, they're very old crimes that are being investigated here, but they are representational of what is wrong around us and continues to be wrong around us. These people are still in power.
And there's no statute of limitation on a murder.
No, there
for a
is
simple
not.
reason, because it'll go on if you don't confront it, no matter how old it is.
Yeah, well, you know what? I have to make this point too. If you look into the Bible, and if you're a believer in Jesus, there's only one thing, one violent act that he ever recommended. Only one. And he was referring to those who abuse children. And he said that it would be better to put a millstone around the neck of one such as these than it would be to harm the hair of the head of any of these little ones.
And throw them in the ocean, you
And
left
throw
out.
them in the ocean.
And back
yes.
then, millstones were about 8 feet across,
Yes,
so I think he
yes.
was trying to make a
And they were pushed
strong
around by
point.
mules.
Yes.
So yeah, he wasn't mincing any words here. And what we have here is the crime that even Christ got mad over. This is the kind of crime even Jesus got mad about. And we need to be mad people. We need to be very angry, and we need to take that anger forward and start knocking on the appropriate doors and make sure that not another child ends up like this. Not another child of any of us.
Amen.
So on that note, I thank you again for bringing us this incredible, incredible revelation.
Thank you both.
Thank you, and give you my God bless on your efforts, because boy, we need them.
I'll carry it on.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you everyone for being with us. Thank you for sharing this video and making sure that everybody and their dog knows what's going on, because it's just the tip of the iceberg, people. We need our real health in this country, and it's not going to come by ignoring crimes of church and state. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, Dee. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll see ya.
Until next time.
Between depleted diets and day-to-day stress, today's high-tech, high-speed lifestyle wears us down, so we need to make sure our bodies have the right fuel to keep going and stay healthy. And that means we need the right balance of calcium and magnesium to keep our bones strong, guard against osteoporosis, and to keep our muscles working smoothly. Life Choice Optical Mag Complex gives you a veritable feast of nutrients in one capsule. Vitamins B6 and D, plus potassium, boron, and MSM, on top of 2 forms of calcium and 3 of magnesium. This all-natural formula gives your bones a boost and helps your muscles carry you through the day. Check out Optical Mag Complex and all the terrific new Life Choice formulations to help you achieve your optimum health. It's your life, and it's your choice. So make it Life Choice.
Did you know that your thyroid gland is the master and commander of many body functions and is a pivotal factor in the maintenance of your overall health? Whether it's overactive or running on idle, an off-kilter thyroid can cause a long list of ailments, including fatigue, fuzzy thinking, depression, and anxiety. It can slow your reflexes and speed up your heart, raise your blood pressure, and cause you to gain or lose weight. With all that at stake, it makes good sense to take good care of your thyroid with Thyroid Support, a fast-acting, easy-to-take homeopathic formula from Life Choice. Life Choice Thyroid Support. It's nature's goodness wrapped with care. We all know that vitamin B6 is really important to us, right, Hugh? And the best form of vitamin B6 to take is pyroxidol 5-phosphate, or P5P, because it's in the form that goes right to work.
That's right, Dee. Now, Life Choice brings you P5P complex plus a blend of trace minerals to help you fight carpal tunnel syndrome, neuritis, fatigue, depression, decreased immune function, and more.
And P5P is the only form of B6 that can be given safely to infants, so you know it's the perfect solution for you and your family. It's sort of like honey. The bees digest it for us, so it's the safest sweetener there is. You could say it's a honey of a bee.
It sure is. And with Life Choice, you always know it's nature's best wrapped with care.
Absolutely. Health-conscious Canadians know that nowadays staying healthy means supplementing your diet. And we all know that, right?
Absolutely.
The best way to do that is with natural products from Life Choice, where we shop the world to bring you the finest ingredients, specially blended to give you the best results in building and maintaining your optimum health. Life Choice products are precision formulated by a naturopathic doctor and a team of specialists who take pride in bringing you the quality, value, and health you deserve. All Life Choice products are Health Canada approved, so you can buy them with confidence. Yes, there really is a difference with Life Choice. You can prove it to yourself. Ask for Life Choice products at your local health food store. Life Choice, with 25 years of experience, wrapping nature's goodness with care.